Kevin adjusted the telescope on the back porch, squinting as he tried to focus it on the night sky. The stars twinkled faintly above the quiet Midwestern town, their light barely visible through the haze of summer humidity. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, letting the cool breeze wash over him. It was hard to believe that tomorrow would be unlike any other day in his 17 years of life. The email had arrived 2 weeks ago. His mom, Linda, had read it aloud at the dinner table, her voice trembling with excitement. "We've been selected," she'd said, holding up her phone like it was a golden ticket. "A cultural exchange program with aliens." Kevin remembered choking on his mashed potatoes while his dad, Richard, chuckled nervously. His older sister, Claire, had simply raised an eyebrow and muttered something about how they were already weird enough without adding extraterrestrials into the mix. Now, here they were, waiting for their alien guest to arrive. The instructions had been clear: no bright lights, no loud noises, and definitely no sudden movements. Apparently, first impressions mattered even across galaxies. Kevin wasn't sure what to expect. A towering lizard creature, a floating blob, or maybe someone who looked just like them, but with, extra eyes or something. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped him out of his thoughts. His parents emerged from the house, both wearing awkward smiles and clutching a homemade welcome sign decorated with glitter glue and construction paper. Claire followed behind, arms crossed, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Kevin joined them, stuffing his hands into his pockets as headlights illuminated the front yard. A sleek silver shuttle descended silently onto the street, its surface shimmering like liquid metal under the moonlight. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, with a soft hiss, the craft's doors slid open, revealing nothing. At least, not at first. Slowly, a glowing orb hovered out of the ship, pulsating with soft hues of blue and green. It floated toward the family, stopping just a few feet away. "Hello," came a voice, not from the orb itself, but directly inside their minds. Everyone flinched except for Claire, who narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "I am Zixar. I have come to learn about your species." Kevin blinked. Hi, I'm Kevin." He glanced at his parents, unsure if he should shake hands, or whatever the equivalent was for a floating ball of light. "Nice to meet you, Zixar," Linda said warmly, stepping forward despite her obvious nerves. "This is my husband, Richard, and our children, Claire and Kevin. We're so excited to have you stay with us." Zixar tilted slightly, as though nodding. "Your hospitality is appreciated. I will endeavor to adapt to your customs." Richard cleared his throat. "Well, let's get you settled in. Your room is upstairs. It's got a nice view of the backyard." As they led Zixar inside, Kevin couldn't help but stare. This was really happening. An actual alien was staying in their house. What would the neighbors think? More importantly, what would Zixar think of Earth? Kevin imagined explaining things like pizza, football games, and smartphones to someone who probably communicated telepathically and traveled via spaceship. Later that evening, after showing Zixar around the house, the family gathered in the living room. Claire sat cross-legged on the couch, flipping through a biology textbook, while Kevin fiddled with a broken radio he'd found in the garage earlier that week. Zixar hovered nearby, observing curiously. "Why do you use these crude devices?" Zixar asked suddenly, his voice echoing in their minds. "Thought alone can achieve so much." Kevin laughed nervously. "Yeah, well, we're not exactly advanced like you guys. Here, try this." He handed Zixar the screwdriver he'd been using. Zixar hesitated, then extended a tendril of energy toward the tool. The radio sparked to life, emitting a strange humming noise that filled the room. Everyone froze, staring wide-eyed at the device, and at Zixar, whose glow seemed to flicker erratically. What just happened?" Claire stammered. "I am uncertain," Zixar replied, sounding equally confused. "Is it expanding? What else can it do?" No one had an answer, but as the hum faded and the room fell silent, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far bigger and stranger than any of them could have anticipated. The next morning, Kevin woke up to the smell of pancakes wafting through the house. He shuffled downstairs in his pajamas, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and found his mom flipping flapjacks at the stove. Claire was already seated at the table, scrolling through her phone with a half-eaten piece of toast in hand. Zixar hovered near the window, watching birds flutter between the trees outside. "Morning," Kevin mumbled as he slumped into a chair. His mom placed a plate of pancakes in front of him, along with a glass of orange juice. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Linda said cheerfully. "You're just in time for breakfast with our guest." Zixar turned toward them, glowing softly. "Greetings. Your planet's sunrise is intriguing. It's just the sun coming up," Claire said, not looking up from her phone. "Nothing special." Kevin rolled his eyes. "Don't mind her. She thinks everything's boring." Claire shot him a glare but didn't respond. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and finally addressed Zixar. "So, how does your species eat? Or do you even need food?" "I derive energy from ambient sources," Zixar replied calmly. "Your atmosphere provides sufficient sustenance for now." Richard walked into the kitchen, adjusting his tie as he headed for the coffee pot. "Well, if you ever get tired of air, we've got plenty of leftovers in the fridge." Zixar tilted slightly, which Kevin had started interpreting as a nod. "Thank you. I will remember that." After breakfast, Kevin decided to show Zixar around the garage. It was cluttered with tools, old furniture, and various projects he'd abandoned over the years. The broken radio still sat on the workbench where he'd left it the night before. "This is where I work on stuff," Kevin explained, gesturing vaguely at the mess. "You know, gadgets, machines, things like that." Zixar drifted closer to the workbench, his glow dimming slightly as he examined the scattered tools. "These objects are primitive compared to what my people use, yet they hold a certain charm." Kevin grinned. "Yeah, well, we make do with what we've got. Want to see something cool?" Without waiting for an answer, Kevin grabbed the screwdriver and handed it to Zixar again. This time, the alien hesitated, remembering the strange reaction from the previous night. "It might be better if we don't," Zixar began, but Kevin cut him off. "Come on, it'll be fine. Just try touching the radio again." Reluctantly, Zixar extended another tendril of energy toward the device. As soon as it connected, the radio buzzed loudly, emitting a series of high-pitched tones that made everyone wince. The sound grew louder and more distorted until Kevin quickly pulled the plug from the wall. "What the heck was that?" Claire demanded, covering her ears. "I warned you," Zixar exclaimed, his voice echoing sharply in their minds. His glow pulsed erratically, brighter than usual. Kevin stared at the now silent radio, his heart racing. "I didn't think it would do that again." "Well, obviously it did," Claire snapped. "Maybe we should stop messing around before something worse happens." But Kevin couldn't ignore the spark of curiosity burning inside him. "Wait, no, don't you see? There's something going on here. Something big." Linda appeared in the doorway, frowning at the commotion. "What's all this noise about? Is everything okay?" "We're fine, Mom," Kevin assured her, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Just experimenting." Later that afternoon, Claire joined Kevin in the garage while Zixar floated nearby, observing silently. She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow. "Okay, genius. What exactly are you trying to prove?" "I'm not sure yet," Kevin admitted. "But there's definitely something weird happening when Zixar uses his powers here. Like Earth seems to amplify them or something." Claire frowned. "Amplify? That doesn't sound safe." "It's not dangerous," Zixar interjected gently. "At least, not intentionally. But Kevin is correct. My ability seems stronger here than on my home planet." "Stronger how?" Claire pressed. Zixar paused, considering his words carefully. Imagine holding a single drop of water. On my world, it remains contained. Here, it spreads outward, growing larger and more unpredictable. Kevin's eyes widened. That's amazing. We could learn so much from this. Claire sighed, shaking her head. Or we could accidentally blow up the neighborhood. Have you thought about that? Before Kevin could argue, Zixer spoke again. Your caution is wise, Claire. However, I believe understanding this phenomenon may benefit both our species. Perhaps we should investigate further, but cautiously. Claire hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if anything explodes, I'm blaming you too. Over the next few days, the trio conducted small experiments in secret, testing Zixar's abilities under different conditions. They discovered that his energy reacted unpredictably. By the end of the week, Kevin and Claire had turned the garage into a makeshift lab. Shelves were lined with tools, wires, and random objects they'd collected from around the house. Zixar hovered in the center of the room, his glow steady but tinged with hints of green, a color Kevin had come to associate with curiosity. So, what's next? Kevin asked, flipping through a notebook filled with scribbled notes and sketches. We've tested metal, wood, plastic. What about water? Claire crossed her arms, leaning against the workbench. Water seems risky. Remember what happened with the wrench. Besides, we don't even know why your powers are acting this way. Zixar tilted slightly, as if nodding. Your concerns are valid. However, I suspect Earth's magnetic field plays a role. It interacts with my energy in ways I cannot fully explain. Kevin's eyes lit up. The magnetic field. That makes sense. Maybe it's like amplifying you somehow. Claire frowned. Amplifying isn't always a good thing. Look at how unstable everything gets when he tries something new. Unstable doesn't mean dangerous, Kevin countered. It just means we need to figure out how to control it. Zixar pulsed softly, drawing their attention. Perhaps we should proceed carefully. Your planet is delicate, and I do not wish to cause harm. Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. Fine, but let's stick to small tests for now. No more flying wrenches or exploding radios. They decided to focus on observing Zixar's energy without directly interacting with objects. Claire set up a camera borrowed from her biology class, while Kevin arranged a series of sensors he'd salvaged from an old weather station. Zixar agreed to project small bursts of energy toward the equipment, allowing them to measure its effects. As the experiment began, Zixar emitted a faint pulse of light. The sensors buzzed faintly, recording data that Claire quickly jotted down. Everything seemed normal, until Zixar released a second, stronger pulse. The air crackled, and the lights in the garage flickered violently. A loud hum filled the room, resonating deep in their chests. Whoa, Kevin shouted, backing away from the workbench. That wasn't supposed to happen. Claire scrambled to turn off the equipment, but the hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling leaves and sending birds scattering from nearby trees. Zixar's glow flared brightly, almost blinding. Stop! Claire yelled over the noise. You're losing control. Zixar retracted his energy immediately, and the hum faded as quickly as it had begun. The room fell silent except for the sound of their breathing. Kevin stared wide-eyed at the alien, who now floated lower to the ground, his glow dimmer than usual. I apologize, Zixar said quietly. I did not anticipate such a reaction. Claire exhaled sharply, clutching the notebook tightly. That was way too close. We can't keep doing this unless we understand what's causing it. Kevin nodded slowly, his earlier excitement tempered by fear. Yeah, okay. But we have to figure this out. If your powers keep getting stronger, it could be bad. For you and for us. Later that evening, after cleaning up the garage, the three gathered in the living room. Linda and Richard were watching TV, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had unfolded earlier. Kevin sat on the couch beside Claire, while Zixar hovered near the fireplace. What if it's not just the magnetic field? Claire mused aloud. What if there's something else affecting you? Something we haven't thought of yet. Zixar tilted again, considering her words. It is possible. My species has never encountered a planet quite like yours. There may be factors beyond our understanding. Kevin leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Like what? Gravity? Temperature? Or maybe life itself? Earth's full of living things. Could that be part of it? Claire frowned thoughtfully. Living things emit energy too. Plants, animals, people. It's all connected somehow. Maybe Earth's ecosystems are interacting with your abilities. Zixar's glow brightened slightly, a sign Kevin recognized his interest. An intriguing theory. If true, it would explain why my powers grow stronger here. But it also means you're changing, Claire added, her voice quieter. Not just your energy, but you. You're adapting to Earth, whether you realize it or not. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Kevin glanced at Zixar, noticing subtle differences he hadn't seen before. The alien's glow seemed brighter, his movements smoother, almost fluid. Was he really evolving, or was something else happening? I will meditate on this, Zixar said finally. In the meantime, we must continue cautiously. The consequences of further instability could be severe. Claire nodded grimly. Agreed. No more big experiments until we know what we're dealing with. Kevin hesitated, torn between X. The next morning, Claire decided it was time to take things seriously. She borrowed more equipment from her university lab. Things like electromagnetic sensors, thermal cameras, and a device that measured subtle energy fluctuations. Kevin helped her set everything up in the garage, while Zixar observed silently, his glow steady but tinged with hints of blue, which Kevin had learned meant calmness. All right, Claire said, standing back to survey their setup. This is as ready as it's going to get. Let's see if we can figure out what's really going on. Kevin nodded, adjusting one of the sensors. You think this stuff will actually work? It has to, Claire replied firmly. If we don't understand what's happening to Zixar, we're just flying blind. And trust me, nobody wants that. Zixar floated closer, tilting slightly. I am willing to cooperate fully, but please, exercise caution. Claire gave him a reassuring smile. We'll be careful. Just focus on small bursts of energy, okay? Nothing too intense. For the next hour, they ran a series of controlled tests. Zixar emitted short pulses of energy, each one weaker than the last. The sensors buzzed faintly, recording data that Claire monitored closely. At first, everything seemed normal. The readings showed minor spikes in energy levels, nothing alarming. But then, during the fifth test, something unexpected happened. As Zixar released another pulse, the thermal camera captured a sudden surge of heat radiating outward. The air shimmered visibly, distorting the light around him. Claire gasped, scrambling to adjust the settings on the camera, while Kevin backed away instinctively. Whoa, Kevin exclaimed, shielding his face. What's going on? I don't know, Claire shouted, her voice tinged with panic. It's like your energy is creating some kind of ripple effect. Zixar retracted the pulse immediately, but the distortion lingered for a few seconds before fading. His glow dimmed noticeably, and he hovered lower to the ground, almost as if exhausted. This cannot continue, Zixar said quietly. The reactions are becoming unpredictable. Claire turned off the equipment and sank onto a stool, her hands trembling slightly. He's right. We need to stop before something worse happens. Kevin frowned, pacing back and forth. But we can't just quit. There's obviously something special about Earth. It's amplifying your powers, Zixar. Maybe even changing you. Don't you want to know why? Yes, Zixar admitted. But at what cost? If my presence endangers your planet, or your family, I must reconsider my stay. No way, Kevin said firmly. You're not leaving until we figure this out. We just need to find a better way to study it without losing control. Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. Kevin's right. Running away won't solve anything. But we need a plan, a real one. Something safer. Over dinner that night, the family discussed their options. Linda and Richard listened intently as Claire explained the situation, leaving out the most dangerous details to avoid worrying them too much. Kevin chimed in occasionally, offering ideas, while Zixer remained quiet, his glow dim but steady. What if we try isolating the variables? Claire suggested finally. Instead of testing everything at once, we focus on one thing at a time, like Earth's magnetic field, or its atmosphere, or even the presence of living organisms. That sounds reasonable, Richard said, nodding thoughtfully. But how do you isolate something like that? We could build a containment chamber, Kevin blurted out. Something that blocks external influences, so we can see how Zixer reacts inside it. Claire raised an eyebrow. A containment chamber? Do you even know how to build one? Not yet, Kevin admitted sheepishly. But I can figure it out. I've got books, videos, all kinds of stuff online. It's worth a shot. Linda looked hesitant. Are you sure this is safe? You're talking about trapping an alien in a box. It wouldn't trap him. Claire clarified quickly. Just contain his energy long enough for us to study it, and only if Zixar agrees. All eyes turned to Zixar, who tilted slightly in consideration. If it means preventing further instability, I am willing to try. The decision made, Kevin spent the rest of the evening sketching designs for the chamber. Claire helped him refine the plans, pointing out flaws and suggesting improvements. By midnight, they had a rough blueprint ready. As they worked, Zixer floated nearby, watching silently. His glow flickered occasionally, hinting at unease, but he didn't object. Kevin couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. They were stepping into uncharted territory, pushing boundaries neither humans nor aliens fully understood. And deep down, he wondered if they were prepared for what they might discover. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Kevin and Claire worked tirelessly in the garage, piecing together the containment chamber using scrap metal, wires, and parts salvaged from old appliances. The design was far from perfect, but it was the best they could do with limited resources. Zixar watched patiently, occasionally offering suggestions that seemed to come from a place of deep knowledge about energy fields. This panel should be grounded, he said one afternoon, pointing to a section of the frame. It will help stabilize the field inside. Got it, Kevin replied, adjusting the wiring accordingly. He wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. Man, I didn't think building a box would be this hard. Claire chuckled, tightening a bolt on the other side. It's not just a box, genius. It's a high-tech containment unit. Well, sort of. By the time they finished, the chamber looked like a cross between a science fair project and something out of a sci-fi movie. It was roughly the size of a small closet, with walls made of layered metal sheets and a transparent front panel for observation. Sensors lined the interior, ready to record every detail of what happened inside. All right, Claire said, stepping back to examine their work. Let's test it before we put Zixer in there. Kevin nodded, flipping a switch to activate the chamber. A low hum filled the room as the device powered up. Lights blinked on the control panel, indicating that everything was functioning properly, or at least as well as could be expected. Zixer floated closer, tilting slightly. Impressive. You have constructed this quickly. Thanks, Kevin grinned. Now let's see if it actually works. They decided to start with a simple test, placing a small object inside the chamber and observing how Zixar's energy interacted with it under controlled conditions. Claire grabbed an old flashlight from the workbench and placed it inside the chamber, sealing the door behind her. Ready? She asked, glancing at Zixar. He nodded. Proceed. Zixar extended a tendril of energy toward the chamber, focusing it on the flashlight. At first, nothing happened. The device remained inert, untouched by the alien's power. But then, slowly, the flashlight began to glow faintly, its bulb lighting up without any visible source of electricity. "Whoa," Kevin whispered, staring at the glowing flashlight. "That's kind of amazing." Claire jotted down notes furiously, her pen scratching against the paper. "Okay, so your energy is still affecting objects, but it's contained within the chamber. That's good, really good." Encouraged by the success of the initial test, they moved on to more complex experiments. Over the next 2 days, they tested various materials: plastic, wood, glass, inside the chamber, carefully monitoring Zixar's reactions. Each time, the results were consistent. His energy behaved predictably, confined within the boundaries of the chamber. But on the 3rd day, something went wrong. During one experiment, Zixar attempted to amplify his energy slightly to see how the chamber would handle increased output. The moment he did, the hum of the machine grew louder, vibrating through the garage. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the lights flickered wildly. Outside, the neighborhood plunged into darkness as the power grid overloaded. "Oh no," Claire muttered, frantically trying to shut off the chamber. "We blew the power." Kevin rushed to unplug the device, his hand shaking. "Is everyone okay?" "I am fine," Zixar assured them, though his glow dimmed noticeably. "But perhaps we pushed too far." The blackout lasted only a few minutes, but it was enough to draw attention. Neighbors peeked out of their windows, confused by the sudden loss of electricity. Inside the house, Linda and Richard exchanged worried glances, clearly sensing that something unusual had occurred. Later that night, after the family had gone to bed, Claire confronted Kevin in the garage. "This can't happen again," she said firmly. "If someone finds out about Zixar, or worse, if the government gets involved, we're all in trouble." Kevin ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. "I know, okay, but we're so close to figuring this out. We just need more time." Claire sighed, leaning against the workbench. "Time isn't something we have. Every time Zixar uses his powers, the risks get bigger. What happens if the next blackout isn't just the neighborhood? What if it's the whole town, or worse?" Kevin opened his mouth to argue, but the look in Claire's eyes stopped him. She wasn't just scared for herself, she was scared for Zixar. For the first time, Kevin realized how much responsibility they'd taken on, and how dangerous it truly was. "Maybe you're right," he admitted quietly, "but we can't just give up. Not yet." Claire hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but we need a new plan. Something smarter and safer." The following morning, Claire decided it was time to take extra precautions. She spent hours researching online, reading articles about energy containment and electromagnetic shielding. Kevin joined her at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of old science magazines he found in the attic. Zixar floated nearby, his glow dim but steady, occasionally offering insights that left both siblings awestruck. "We need to find a way to stabilize your energy," Claire said, tapping her pen against her notebook. "If we can't control it, we're just asking for trouble." Kevin nodded, pointing to an article on advanced magnetic fields. "What if we use something like this? It says here that certain materials can block or redirect energy waves." "It's worth a shot," Claire agreed. "But where do we even get those materials?" Before Kevin could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Linda opened it to reveal a man in a dark suit, holding a clipboard and wearing a polite smile. His name tag read Agent Monroe. "Good morning," the man said smoothly. "I'm with Nexus, a government agency focused on unusual phenomena. We've noticed some irregularities in this area recently. Mind if I ask a few questions?" Linda hesitated, glancing back at the kitchen. Sure. Come in." As Agent Monroe stepped inside, Claire quickly shoved her notes under a pile of books. Kevin forced a casual grin, though his heart was racing. Zixar retreated to the corner of the room, dimming his glow until he was nearly invisible. "I'll keep this brief," Agent Monroe continued, his eyes scanning the room. There have been reports of localized power outages and strange energy readings in this neighborhood over the past week. Any idea what might be causing them? Nope, no clue, Kevin said quickly, perhaps too quickly. Probably just faulty wiring or something. Claire jumped in, trying to sound calm. Yeah, our lights flickered the other night too. It happens sometimes, right? Agent Monroe smiled thinly. Perhaps. Still, I'd like to take a look around if you don't mind, just to rule out any potential hazards. Linda glanced nervously at Richard, who shrugged. Well, I suppose that's fine. Actually, Claire interrupted, stepping forward. We're kind of busy right now. My brother and I are working on a school project and it won't take long, Agent Monroe assured her, already moving toward the hallway. Just a quick walkthrough. Kevin exchanged a panicked look with Claire as the agent headed for the garage. Zixer pulsed faintly, clearly uneasy. Claire whispered urgently, "Stay hidden, okay? Don't move." Inside the garage, Agent Monroe paused, examining the half-finished containment chamber. Interesting setup you've got here. What exactly are you building? It's, Kevin stammered, scrambling for an excuse. A science fair project. About renewable energy. Claire elbowed him. He means sustainable energy sources. You know, solar panels and stuff. Agent Monroe raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. He tapped the side of the chamber, listening to the hollow echo. Solar panels, huh? Doesn't look much like that to me. Well, it's still a work in progress, Claire added hastily. We're experimenting with different designs. The agent studied them for a moment longer before nodding. Fair enough. Let me know if you notice anything else unusual around here. We're always happy to help. After he left, the family let out a collective sigh of relief. Linda turned to Claire and Kevin, her hands on her hips. What was that all about? And why does our garage look like a mad scientist's lab? It's complicated, Mom, Claire muttered, avoiding eye contact. Once they were alone again, she turned to Kevin. This is bad. Really bad. If they come back, we won't be able to hide Zixer forever. Kevin frowned, pacing back and forth. Maybe we don't have to. What if we explain everything? Tell them Zixer isn't dangerous. He's just misunderstood. And risk having him taken away. Claire snapped. They'd lock him up in some lab and experiment on him. Is that what you want? No, Kevin shouted, his voice cracking. Of course not. But we can't keep lying either. Sooner or later, they'll figure it out. Zixer floated closer, his glow flickering softly. Your concern for my safety is appreciated. However, Claire is correct. My presence endangers your family. Perhaps it would be best if I left. No, Kevin said firmly. You're not going anywhere. Not until we fix this. Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. Fixing this isn't going to be easy. We need a plan, a real one. Something that keeps everyone safe, including you. Over the next few days, they redoubled their efforts. Claire modified the containment chamber, adding layers of insulation and grounding wires to better stabilize Zixar's energy. Kevin scoured the internet for information about Nexus, hoping to learn more about their operations and weaknesses. Meanwhile, Zixar began to notice subtle changes within himself. His energy felt stronger, more volatile, as if Earth itself was reshaping him. He confided in Claire one evening, his tone tinged with worry. My species once faced a similar crisis on our home planet, he admitted. A chain reaction caused by unchecked energy manipulation nearly destroyed us. I fear history may repeat itself if we cannot stabilize my condition. Claire placed a reassuring hand on the edge of the workbench. We'll find a way. Together. As the sun set over the quiet neighborhood, the trio worked late into the night, determined to solve the mystery before it was too late. But lurking in the shadows, unseen eyes watched and waited. The next morning, Kevin woke up early and slipped out of the house before anyone else was awake. He had spent most of the night thinking about Zixar's growing instability and the visit from Agent Monroe. The thought of Nexus discovering their alien guest weighed heavily on his mind. If they couldn't find a solution soon, things could spiral out of control. He headed to the local junkyard, hoping to find parts that might help improve the containment chamber. Among piles of rusted metal and broken electronics, Kevin stumbled upon an old satellite dish. It was dented and dusty, but its parabolic shape gave him an idea. What if we use this to focus Zixar's energy? He muttered to himself as he dragged it back home. If we can direct it instead of letting it spread everywhere, maybe we can contain it better. When he returned, Claire was already in the garage, tinkering with the chamber. She looked up as he dumped the satellite dish onto the workbench. "What's that supposed to be?" "A focusing tool," Kevin explained eagerly. "Think about it. Satellite dishes are designed to channel signals into one spot. Maybe we can adapt it to do the same thing with Zixar's energy." Claire frowned, inspecting the dish. "It's worth a try, I guess. But how are you going to integrate it into the chamber?" Kevin shrugged. "We'll figure it out. Let's just get started." They worked through the afternoon, attaching the dish to the front panel of the chamber and wiring it into the existing system. Zixar hovered nearby, watching silently. His glow flickered faintly, hinting at unease. "Are you sure this will work?" he asked finally. "Not really," Kevin admitted. "But we got to try something new. You're getting stronger every day, and we need to keep your energy under control." By evening, the modified chamber was ready. Claire flipped the switch, powering it up while Kevin adjusted the dish's angle. The hum of the machine filled the room, steady and reassuring. "All right," Claire said, glancing at Zixar. "Let's test it." Zixar floated toward the chamber, extending a tendril of energy toward the dish. At first, nothing seemed different. The energy pulsed softly, contained within the chamber. But then, slowly, the dish began to redirect the energy into a single beam, concentrating it into a narrow stream. "It's working," Kevin exclaimed, grinning. "Look at that." Claire jotted down notes quickly, her pen flying across the page. "The energy is stable now. No spikes or distortions. This might actually work." For the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope. They ran several more tests, each one confirming that the dish helped stabilize Zixar's power. By the end of the session, even Zixar seemed relieved. "This is remarkable," he said softly. "Your ingenuity may have saved us all." But their relief was short-lived. Later that night, as the family gathered for dinner, Kevin noticed headlights sweeping across the living room curtains. He peeked outside and saw 2 black cars parked in front of the house. Agents dressed in suits stepped out, carrying equipment and scanning the area with handheld devices. "They're back," Kevin whispered, his voice trembling. "And they brought friends." Claire sprang into action, grabbing Zixar's glowing form and ushering him toward the basement. "Stay down there until we tell you it's safe." "What about the chamber?" Kevin asked urgently. "We'll deal with it later," Claire snapped, pushing him toward the stairs. "Right now, we need to buy some time." As the agents knocked on the door, Linda and Richard greeted them nervously, stalling for answers. Upstairs, Kevin and Claire scrambled to hide any evidence of their experiments. They shoved notebooks, tools, and wires into a closet, praying the agents wouldn't search the garage. Down in the basement, Zixar dimmed his glow almost completely, blending into the shadows. He turned to Kevin, who had joined him moments later. "I cannot stay here," Zixar said quietly. "My presence endangers your family. I must leave." "No," Kevin insisted, shaking his head. "We promised we'd fix this together. Running away won't solve anything." Zixar tilted slightly, his glow flickering with emotion. "Sometimes sacrifice is necessary, for the greater good." Before Kevin could argue further, Claire appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. "They're coming closer. We don't have much time." Kevin hesitated, torn between protecting Zixar and keeping his promise. But deep down, he knew the alien was right. Staying would only put everyone in more danger. "Fine," Kevin said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we're not giving up. Not yet." As footsteps echoed above them, Zixar prepared to make his escape. Though none of them wanted to say goodbye, they all understood what had to be done. The basement was quiet except for the sound of muffled voices upstairs. Kevin, Claire, and Zixar stood in the dim light of a single bowl hanging from the ceiling. The alien's glow had dimmed to almost nothing, making him nearly invisible against the shadows. Outside, the agent's footsteps grew louder, their voices clearer as they moved closer to the garage. "We need to act fast," Claire whispered urgently, glancing toward the stairs. "If they find you here, it's over." Kevin clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "There has to be another way. We can't just let them take you, or worse." Zixar pulsed faintly, his voice calm but firm. "Your courage is admirable, Kevin, but staying puts your family at risk. I cannot allow that." Claire stepped forward, her expression softening. "He's right. It's not fair, but sometimes doing the right thing means making sacrifices." Kevin shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "This isn't fair. You didn't ask for any of this. Why should you have to leave?" Zixar floated closer, his glow brightening slightly. "Life rarely asks permission before changing us. What matters is how we respond. Your kindness and ingenuity have already changed me, for the better." Before Kevin could reply, the sound of boots thudding down the basement stairs froze them all in place. Claire quickly shoved Zixar behind a stack of boxes, motioning for Kevin to stay silent. She turned to face the intruders, her heart pounding. Two agents appeared at the bottom of the stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. One of them, Agent Monroe, scanned the room with a small device that beeped faintly. "We're looking for something unusual," he said, his tone sharp. "Anything out of the ordinary." "Out of the ordinary," Claire repeated, forcing a nervous laugh. "Like what?" "A ghost. This is just our storage space." Agent Monroe ignored her, stepping deeper into the basement. His partner lingered near the staircase, keeping watch. Kevin held his breath, praying Zixar wouldn't make a sound. As the agents moved closer to the boxes hiding Zixar, Claire suddenly kicked over an old toolbox, sending wrenches and screwdrivers clattering across the floor. "Oops," she exclaimed loudly. "Sorry about that. Clumsy me." The distraction worked. Both agents turned toward the noise, giving Zixar a chance to slip away unnoticed. He drifted silently toward the far wall, where a narrow window provided access to the outside. Kevin caught a glimpse of him disappearing through the opening, his glow vanishing into the night. Once the agents finished searching the basement and left, Claire exhaled sharply, sinking onto a nearby chair. That was too close. Kevin stared at the window, guilt gnawing at him. "Do you think he made it?" "He's smart," Claire replied, though her voice wavered. "He'll be okay." Upstairs, Linda and Richard were trying to stall the agents by offering coffee and snacks. Meanwhile, Kevin and Claire quietly cleaned up the basement, removing any traces of their experiments. They knew Nexus would eventually leave, but they also knew this wasn't the end. Later that night, after the agents had gone and the house fell silent, Kevin sat on the porch staring at the stars. Claire joined him, handing him a cup of hot chocolate. "What now?" Kevin asked quietly, his voice heavy with sadness. Claire sighed, wrapping her arms around her knees. "We keep going. Maybe Zixar's gone, but we still have the chamber and everything we learned. If we can figure out why Earth affects aliens like him, we might be able to help others in the future." Kevin nodded slowly, though his mind kept drifting back to Zixar. He wondered if the alien was safe, or if he'd been forced to flee farther away than anyone could reach. As they sat together under the vast sky, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. For a moment, Kevin thought it might be Zixar returning, but the light faded quickly, leaving only darkness behind. You really care about him, don't you? Claire asked softly. Kevin looked down at his hands, which still smelled faintly of metal and grease. Yeah, he wasn't just some alien. He was family. Claire placed a hand on his shoulder. He'll always remember what you did for him. And so will we. Though the night felt endless, Kevin found a sliver of comfort in her words. Zixer may have left, but his presence lingered, not just in their memories, but in the lessons they'd learned about bravery, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between strangers who became friends. Days turned into weeks, and life in the house slowly returned to normal, or at least as close to normal as it could be after everything that had happened. The family went about their routines. Linda baked cookies, Richard tinkered with his old car, and Claire buried herself in her biology studies. Kevin, however, struggled to move on. He spent hours staring out the window or lying on his bed, replaying the moments leading up to Zixar's departure. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kevin wandered into the garage. The containment chamber still sat in the corner, untouched since that night. Dust had begun to collect on its surface, but the sight of it brought back a flood of memories, both good and bad. He ran his fingers along the metal frame, remembering how hard they'd worked to build it. It felt wrong to just let it sit there, forgotten. Claire appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of tea. "You've been quiet lately," she said, handing him one of the cups. "I know you miss him." Kevin nodded, taking a sip of the warm drink. "It's not just that. I feel like we failed him, like we didn't do enough." "You did everything you could," Claire replied firmly. "Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, things don't work out the way you want them to. But that doesn't mean it was for nothing." Kevin sighed, leaning against the workbench. "Do you think he's okay? Out there, alone?" Claire hesitated before answering. "I think so. He's smart, resourceful, and he knows how much we care about him. That has to count for something." As if on cue, a faint hum filled the air. Both siblings froze, exchanging wide-eyed glances. The sound grew louder, vibrating softly through the walls. Then, without warning, a glowing orb floated into view, hovering just outside the garage door. "Zixar," Kevin whispered, his voice trembling. The orb tilted slightly, pulsing with familiar hues of blue and green. "Hello," came the gentle voice inside their minds. "I have returned." Kevin nearly dropped his cup as he rushed forward. "You're back. Are you okay? Did anyone follow you?" "I am unharmed," Zixar assured them, "and I took precautions to ensure my return went unnoticed." Claire stepped closer, her expression a mix of relief and concern. "Why did you come back?" "It's dangerous here. I could not leave without saying goodbye properly," Zixar explained. "Your kindness meant more to me than words can express." Leaving without acknowledging that felt incomplete. Kevin felt tears welling up in his eyes. "We thought we'd never see you again." Zixar pulsed softly, his glow brightening. "I will never forget what you did for me, or the lessons I learned from you. Humanity is remarkable, flawed yet full of potential. You reminded me of that." Claire smiled faintly, though her voice wavered. "Does this mean you're leaving again? For good this time?" "Yes," Zixar admitted, "but I will carry your world with me always. Its energy, its people, its spirit. They are now part of me." Before they could say anything else, Zixar extended a tendril of energy toward the containment chamber. The device hummed to life, glowing faintly as if responding to his touch. "This creation of yours, it will serve as a reminder of our bond. Use it wisely." With those final words, Zixar floated backward, drifting toward the open sky. His glow grew brighter, almost blinding, before fading into the stars above. Kevin and Claire stood side by side, watching until he disappeared completely. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Claire broke the silence. "He'll be okay, you know. Wherever he goes, he'll make a difference." Kevin nodded, wiping his eyes. "Yeah, And maybe someday, someone else will find him, and they'll get to experience what we did. As they walked back inside, the containment chamber remained lit, casting a soft glow across the garage. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was a symbol of hope, connection, and the unbreakable ties that transcend worlds. Weeks passed, and the memory of Zixer lingered in the house like a quiet echo. Kevin often found himself staring at the containment chamber in the garage, its faint glow a constant reminder of their time with the alien. Claire had taken to writing about their experiences in her journal, filling pages with details she hoped to one day share, though not yet, not while the world still felt too small to understand. One crisp autumn afternoon, Kevin sat on the porch flipping through an old astronomy book he borrowed from the library. The pages were filled with pictures of distant galaxies, nebulae, and planets that seemed impossibly far away. He paused at a photo of a glowing gas cloud, its colors eerily similar to Zixar's energy. For a moment, he imagined the alien floating among the stars, exploring places humans could only dream of. Still thinking about him? Claire asked, stepping outside with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. Kevin nodded, accepting the mug gratefully. Yeah, I wonder what he's doing right now. If he's okay. He's fine, Claire said confidently, sitting beside him. Remember what he said. He's carrying Earth with him. That means we're out there too, in a way. Kevin smiled faintly, sipping his drink. I guess you're right. It's just hard to let go. Claire nudged him playfully. You'll always have the memories. And hey, maybe someday aliens will visit again. Next time, they might even bring souvenirs. They both laughed, the sound easing some of the lingering sadness. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the horizon in shades of orange and pink, Kevin noticed something unusual, a faint shimmer in the air, like heat rising off pavement. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but then the shimmer grew brighter, forming a soft glow above the trees. Do you see that? Kevin whispered, pointing toward the light. Claire squinted, her breath catching as the glow pulsed gently. It wasn't Zixer. It couldn't be. But it felt familiar, like a piece of him left behind. Slowly, the light spread outward, enveloping the backyard in a warm golden hue. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it faded, leaving behind a sense of calm. What was that? Claire murmured, her voice barely audible. I don't know, Kevin admitted, but it felt nice, like a goodbye hug. The siblings sat in silence for a while, letting the moment sink in. Though Zixer was gone, his presence remained woven into their lives. In the lessons they'd learned, the bond they'd formed, and the knowledge that Earth held mysteries beyond their understanding. Later that night, Claire finished typing up her notes about Zixer and uploaded them to a secure folder on her laptop. She didn't plan to publish them anytime soon, but she wanted to preserve the story, for herself, for Kevin, and maybe for future generations who would look to the stars with the same curiosity they once had. Kevin lay awake in bed, gazing out his window at the endless expanse of space. Somewhere out there, Zixer was traveling, learning, and growing. Kevin liked to think that every now and then, the alien looked back at Earth and remembered the family who had welcomed him, not as a stranger, but as a friend. As sleep finally claimed him, Kevin dreamed of glowing orbs and shimmering skies. In his dream, Zixar's voice echoed softly. Thank you for everything. You will always have a home here. When morning came, Kevin woke with a smile, ready to face whatever adventures lay ahead. The stars no longer felt so distant. They were full of possibility, connection, and hope. And somewhere among them, Zixer was watching over them, a silent guardian in an ever-expanding universe.